Hey guys, so we got a Morgan 42 here. I want to take you aboard and give you a little bit of tour and talk a little bit about the boat, the design, and also a little bit about Morgan Yachts. So let's hop on board and take a look. Okay, so here we are on Paper Tiger, a 1972 Morgan 42, and she's down getting ready to be hauled out for the season, but I want to kind of take you through and show her to you a little bit. So Morgan 42 was first designed 1968. I believe there were two boats, a couple boats made, maybe more than that. But the first two were Charlie Morgan sailed one of them, I believe, raced it. It had a little bit deeper keel than the production model, and it also had the prop was ahead of the skeg instead of inside of the skeg, between the rudder and the skeg on this one. Other than that, most of the layout, everything else was pretty much the same to my knowledge. So let's go through and take a look, and I'll give you a little tour, and then we'll talk about the boat itself. Okay, so we have a nice, easy, open companionway with a nice step, a couple steps down. This is a very easy boat to enter in and out of, even when you're in some heavy stuff. We've got an aft berth. Then we also have here is the nav station. So it's got a nice big table and then a really small drawer. You could probably expand that if you wanted to, rebuild it, but that's one of the knocks on this boat is there's not a ton of storage. So you got to kind of get creative. But we got a good nav station, and then here they've just put kind of a couple little bins in there. Some of them will have slide outs and a little bit better storage than that. Our engine compartment or access for some of our basic engine services here. We got a nice big diesel on this one, so we got a 4-cylinder. This thing's a truck motor, really. I mean, it pushes the boat pretty well. The boat can cruise at about 6.5, 7 knots under motor and flat water without too much of a problem. Then we got our galley. Galley is nice wraparound galley. It's got an alcohol burning stove on this one. We've got an ice box, which is, you know, decent little ice box for its age, and then a little sink. Good storage back here, looks pretty nice, and then, you know, a couple spots to store up here. So then up here there used to be a table in this location. Table was removed quite some time ago. This boat used to be used for racing on Lake Michigan. It actually has a couple of Mackinac race contestant plaques. So the table's been removed, so this is just kind of an open space. A little bit of storage back here for these slide outs, or these slide back. You got some storage there. And then we do have a berth on this side. You can put some lee cloths up. I've seen some people also put a bunk here that's removable to add a little bit of sleeping on some of the race boats. Nice wood on this boat, good bulkheads. Big windows, so you get lots of nice natural light. It does not have kind of that midship hatch, which a lot of the newer boats will have, but it gets plenty of light still. So up here we do have our wet locker. The doors have been taken off this one. Just stores life vests up here, and then, you know, got a little window. This little venting. Then here's your V-berth. So V-berth is fairly roomy. That is your anchor storage. It does not have an anchor locker accessible from the top. So on this boat, they actually keep it in the back, and that was made just to kind of cover that up and pretty it up a little bit. A little bit of storage on the sides. Oftentimes you'll get people build these out with slide out drawers. You know, decent storage, but not great. We got some flip open windows here, which are great. And then a forward hatch, which is a little bit small if you're going to be dropping spinnakers and stuff down this hatch. It's it could be a little bit bigger, but you know, it was an older boat, so that's the way it was designed. So then we come into this area, and we've got the head. So this one's been outfitted with an electric head. Pretty roomy in here. This is actually a nice space. Oftentimes they're fit with a shower with a little drain, but yeah. So this is the head. A little sink, storage back there. A little bit of storage underneath the sink as well. All right, so one of the things with this boat that you really got to watch is making sure that your keel bolts are in good condition and that you can access all of them, that they're routinely tightened after each season. You want to get on those and crank them up. This one's just been redone. The keel was completely redone. We got brand new floors in here because of that keel work. So the keel was dropped, all the bolts were replaced, new nuts were added. So one of the things you got to watch out for with this boat is how it's stored in the off season or anytime you put it on the hard to do maintenance. So it has that old spade kind of keel that goes, and it has a good portion of unsupported keel behind it. And if you bring this boat down and you set it down aft end first and you put weight on that, it's going to flex your keel joint, and it's going to give what they call the smile. It can cause a lot of damage, especially if it's stored like that for an entire off season. So when you have the yard store this boat, they have to make sure that all of the load bearing is basically where your blocking goes. If you go directly up, you're not behind the keel joint at the aft end of the keel. So you got to be creative on how you get it blocked in there, but make sure that your yard knows what they're doing, because it can cause a lot of keel damage. It's actually one of the most common things you have to deal with this boat is damage to the keel and then wet decks. Those are kind of the two things, but make sure that keel is set on properly or you're going to get the keel smile, and eventually your keel's going to start having a little bit of motion or movement to it. So make sure it's done properly. So, well, let's go look at the deck. It's a little windy today, but let's look at the deck and I'll show you around up there.
All right, so coming out the companionway, this one actually had the synthetic teak put down, which actually is pretty robust. It's lasted pretty long. I actually installed it. It's been on here for about 10 years and it's doing great. So back end, plenty of room in the cockpit. One of the great things about this boat is that cockpit is huge. So you can comfortably seat 6 or 8 people in here, and then this one's got the stern perch seats, which are fantastic. We're gonna make some covers for these. You've got at the back old style backstay adjuster with a crank handle. You've got your turning blocks for your spinnaker work. This boat hasn't had a spinnaker up on it in a long time. Got massive drums for your winches, and it's got the old school tie-offs. We put a couple of self-tailors on here just to make it easier for people who are using the boat. But it's just kind of an old classic design. Nice narrow profile, so it cuts through the water very, very well. This one has the main sheet traveler over top. It used to have it off in the back, but we got it over the top of the companionway now. It's really good. Massively long boom. The boom is huge on this boat. Very driven by its mainsail, but it is a masthead rig. So right now we have it set up with about a 110, 115 on the jib. But you can see the decks are super easy to walk forward. Nice roomy deck in the front. You know, you've got a car rail here for all your spin pole work that you'd need to do. It's got nice chocks at the front. Nice, long, narrow bow. It's just a really beautiful boat in the water. Very classic design. We got some winches here to do all of our halyard work. And then a couple turning blocks that go back. A decent amount of wood. The wood rails on this one you really got to pay attention to. I think we're going to convert these all to teak oil, and then the grab rails up here just to make it a little bit easier to maintain. So you can see she's a pretty simple boat, pretty simple layout, very old design from the 1960s, 1970s, but just a really solid boat. And I'll tell you, the thing that's the greatest about this boat is how tough she is. So I've had this boat out in some really, really heavy stuff. There's also a Morgan 41 by the name of Cynthia that sails out of, I believe it's St. Joe, Michigan. And they are, I mean, they've got podium flags all over the boat. It's just a tough boat. It still competes very well, and it's almost the same design. Still a very, very good competition, even against some of the newer boats that it sails against. So these are just great boats. They're timeless. And if you want a cruiser for a good budget, you could completely outfit a boat like this with new electronics and everything, do some build out on the interior, easily under 100 grand if you do it right and you do a lot of the work yourself and you find a boat for 20,000, 25,000. It really could make a great cruiser. So I like it. It's a really solid boat. If you're going to be out in some heavy stuff, it's a great boat to be in. She also creeps right along at 5 knots of wind if you got all the sail area up. Just a really, really nice boat. So this is a Morgan 42. Hope you've enjoyed the tour. If you have any questions or comments about the 42, maybe you own one and you have some experience, feel free to throw it down there in the comments. So we'll see you on the next boat tour. Thanks, guys.